Talk to us so long as we keep his identity hidden. Not because he's afraid of getting caught by the police, but because he doesn't want to get in trouble with his mining friends. We'd heard there are around 30,000 self-employed miners in Brazil, known as garimpeiros. The vast majority work illegally, in areas they're forbidden from entering. This miner boasted he could make £1,000 a month, 10 times the average wage, from mining in Yanomami territory. He's just told me that he works for himself, he's his own boss, and he sells the illegally mined gold himself in Venezuela and sometimes here in Boa Vista. The people he's selling it to, he says, sometimes know that they're buying illegal gold, but they don't really care. Mining the gold wasn't easy, he said. The jungle was full of jaguars and snakes. The Yanomami, the tribe that live in the forest, sometimes attack trespassers. He knows it's a very dangerous place to be, but at the moment he just doesn't have the financial means to live any other way. We wanted to see the effect illegal miners are having on Yanomami communities deep in the jungle, but we couldn't go there on our own. The Air Force have agreed to let us join them on a special mission into Yanomami land. Their task was to deliver medical supplies and gather intelligence about the mines. The Yanomami Reserve is home to 32,000 tribespeople. It straddles the Brazil-Venezuela border and is larger than England and Wales combined. It's easy to hide from the law in an area this vast and dense. Colonel Hoffman says from here on, we're looking for illegal landing strips. They're always close to the rivers because they use rivers to transport the equipment that they fly in. We're going to have to go a little bit lower if we're going to be able to spot them with the naked eye. An hour into our flight, we could make out a gap in the trees. Colonel Volkmer told us it was an improvised runway. There's an illegal gold mine right down there. You can see 2 blue huts, some canoes going up and down the river. The Colonel said he couldn't risk landing his plane on a runway like this, but he would note down its location and pass the information on to the police. We flew on to a settlement called Chite. The Colonel said it wasn't the first time there's been a gold rush in the Amazon. A fifth of all Yanomamis died after 40,000 miners came onto their land in the 80s. The Brazilian government responded by creating the reserve and outlawing mining here. So this used to be an illegal gold mine around here?
Yes, till 1992, when Brazil decided to finish these activities.
What was the damage they were causing?
Just these heavy metals, bringing sexual diseases.
Sexually transmitted diseases?
Yes, bringing whiskey.
Do you get the impression that there are more garimpeiros coming into the area?
They will always try to come, but we will always try to find them again and to arrest them. If I see a guy in an illegal activity, I'll have to call the federal police, because this is a federal activity, and they will arrest them.
And do they arrest them often?
Yes.
An hour's flight from Chite, we came to the settlement of Balalau. It was the only spot for miles where we could land a plane. We were deep in Yanomami territory. Obrigado. Obrigado. These villagers have had little contact with outsiders, but the Air Force have brought supplies here before, and the Yanomami seemed happy to receive them. This is a very remote village. As you can see, most of them are more or less in traditional dress. We were now hundreds of miles from Boa Vista. Have you heard stories of any illegal gold mining happening around in Yanomami areas? I wondered if the miners had made it this far.
No.
Tafarel says he knows that there are illegal gold miners around in this area, not here specifically, but he's heard that they're close and they may be coming back. He told me the Yanomami don't want anything to do with gold miners. They ruin their land and brought malaria. The Colonel said he'd take us to another village where we could see this for ourselves. It had been devastated by a recent malaria outbreak. It would take a trek through the jungle to get there. Ugo works with the community here providing healthcare. He says he's going to be one of our guides on our walk to the jungle. The only way to get about in the dense forest is by canoe or on foot. Villages are linked together by a complex network of footpaths. It's not an easy walk, but entire families of Yanomami people who have malaria have to walk for hours on trails like this if they're going to get treatment. Ugo told me there never used to be malaria in this part of the Amazon because there weren't any mosquitoes until the miners arrived. We've been walking for about 5 hours now. There's a chance we might have to sleep out here because one of the crew is really ill. But you can hear that we're getting near our destination because there's lots of mosquitoes in the air and they're all over us. Colonel Volkmer's 4-hour walk actually was a 25-kilometre, 7-hour trek through the jungle, during which time 2 members of our group got seriously ill and needed injections for dehydration, and our camera broke. So we couldn't film us arriving here in this Yanomami village where up to 150 people live. They let us hang our hammocks over there, and we're going to be staying here for a couple of days. This shaman's asking the spirits of the forest for protection from the evil forces that lurk in the jungle. 2 months ago, this village was faced with an unfamiliar threat when a third of the people here contracted malaria. It was a new enemy for this ancient culture. They had no weapons to fight it. This girl's 3 years old and she's suffering from malaria. Colonel Zulumar, the Air Force medic, came here at the height of the outbreak. It had meant that hunting and farming were impossible, and village life was at a standstill. This is just one little girl with malaria, and she's obviously incredibly weak, but they say she's much better than she was the first time they came here. You've got to imagine 48 people with the same condition in this place, how that would decimate life in this village. Colonel Zulumar told me the outbreak could have turned into an epidemic across the region. In this case, the Air Force managed to get here in time. If they hadn't done that, he suspects that many, many more villages in the surrounding area would have contracted malaria because the Yanomami move so quickly between them and bring the mosquitoes with them. Malaria isn't the only disease to have reached here. The Yanomami have little or no natural immunity to viral infections like colds and flu. On each visit, Colonel Zulumar is on the lookout for new signs of illness.
Não é muito comum, mas eles entram em contato também com os brancos.
Colonel Zulumar says it's not common at all for Yanomami people to have colds. It's not a disease that's common in Yanomami communities. It comes from contacts with whites. We had a compulsory medical checkup before entering the Yanomami reserve, but miners come and go as they please. Ugo explained that the village had come to realise miners had brought these new diseases into their forests. Ugo's told me that he thinks the way everyone here got malaria was because people here regularly visit other Yanomami communities for meetings and parties and things like that. One of the places they visit is near the Venezuelan border, where there's a lot of gold mining. He said at first they welcomed the gold miners and traded food with them, but the Yanomami soon realised they were changing their village. The gold miners ruined their water system, they made their rivers dirty, they also made their rivers dry because they diverted the course of the river, so they couldn't bathe properly, the water was still, and that attracted the mosquitoes, which caused an outbreak of malaria. Even though this village has suffered a malaria outbreak, the people here have been lucky. For every village that receives medical treatment, there may be many more the Air Force has not reached. I'd heard that back in Boa Vista, there was a shaman who had left the jungle for the city to campaign for Yanomami rights. Davi Yanomami told me I was lucky to have seen traditional village life, because their entire existence was under threat. Not only were some communities being hit by new and deadly diseases, but modern life was destroying their ancient culture. So you're happy for us to join you on this trip? It's just gone 6 in the morning, and Davi and his team are taking us towards a Yanomami village, which they say has been badly affected by contact with gold miners. The village we were headed towards lies close to a highway that garimperos use to get to their mines, 4 hours away from Boa Vista. Suddenly, we came across a crowd of people from the village. This is the first time that we've caught sight of them, and it's interesting because when they're dressed so much in Western clothes when the women are wearing bras and they're wearing, you know, hats and they have backpacks. They look like poor Brazilian people rather than Yanomami people. Prazer. This man here is the leader of this Yanomami community. Their village was called Adjarani. These people first had contact with outsiders when the road was constructed 30 years ago. A trickle of newcomers became a flood, many of them offering the Yanomami goods to win their favour. The village gradually came to rely on passers-by for their everyday needs. Soon, outsiders were moving onto the land, and the Yanomami realised they were facing an invasion. This is the Hipachimento River, and for the gold miners, it's a highway to take them into Yanomami lands to find gold. The Yanomamis here blew up the bridge over this river to stop outsiders from getting into their territory, so the only way for us to cross is by boat. Relations with outsiders are now strained, so we wouldn't have been welcome here if we hadn't arrived with Davi. He's the nearest thing the Yanomami have to a spokesperson, and he's trusted across the region. We seem to have gathered a small entourage that's walking with us to the village. Davi had come here to bring supplies and important news. He warned the village that the Brazilian government is considering a law to allow large-scale mining in their territory. This would bring fresh outsiders to the area. But the villagers were wary of taking a stand. They'd come to rely on outsiders for food, clothes, and now alcohol. After thousands of years of self-sufficiency, they had been seduced by consumer goods. Davi had been expected to bring handouts with him. You can see that a lot of people in this village have really, really bad teeth. That's because they're eating a different diet here. They've had so much contact with the outside world. They're eating a lot of refined sugar and they're not brushing their teeth. Carlo Zucchini is an Italian missionary who often works with the Yanomami. He first came to this village 40 years ago. He says at that time all the people here were traditionally dressed. They lived in maloccas, the traditional huts where everybody lives together. There were quite a few maloccas around here. And then progress came in the form of the road. Carlo explained that there had been a history of escalating violence between miners and Yanomami even before mining was outlawed in 1992. The villagers who once cooperated with outsiders now feared them. The village chief, Santarém, said the miners knew they weren't welcome. Santarém says it's very rare that he sees the gold miners going in, but he knows they're coming. He knows that they come at night. They know they're not meant to be here, so they try and do it when they're not going to be seen. He told me he liked white people, but not when they go into his territory and destroy his land. Davi said he feared for the tribe's future. Davi's told me he can't be sure that the Yanomami will last forever, and he thinks they may very well go the same way of many other indigenous tribes in Brazil that have been killed off completely. He said it was crucial that they survived. The Amazon is the lungs of the world, he said, and the Yanomami are the guardians of it. When the fate of the tribe hangs in the balance, so does the future of the rainforest. But the government's not doing anything about it. Raids aren't happening. He said last year he went to Brasilia to talk to the federal police to say that something had to be done about it. But they said they simply didn't have enough money to deal with the problem, and all they needed was to gather more intelligence, but nothing's being done. I returned to Boa Vista to visit the federal police myself. Dr. Claudio de Souza is the city's police chief. Dr. Claudio has told me that it is the federal police's responsibility to conduct raids on illegal mines in Yanomami territory, but they can only do this when they have concrete information that it's happening. We've been out on reconnaissance missions with the Air Force, and they found an illegal gold mine. Have you acted on that information and raided that mine? Even though the Air Force assured us they told the federal police about the mine we'd spotted, Dr. Claudio hadn't heard anything about it. He's just told me he's been in his position for 2 years and 2 months, and during that time he's not received a single piece of information from the Air Force about the location of illegal gold mines in Yanomami territory. It sounds to me like everybody's passing the buck. The Air Force say it's up to the federal police to conduct raids on mines. Meanwhile, the federal police say the Air Force isn't giving them the information so that they can conduct the raids. Meanwhile, gold miners are still going into Yanomami territory with impunity. Brazilian government proposals to legalise and regulate mining in all indigenous territories are currently in their final stages in Parliament. The government says this is the best way to protect the Yanomami from illegal miners. We've repeatedly been told it was too dangerous for us to go to a mine in Yanomami territory. The garimpeiros there have been known to shoot intruders. But there were Brazilians mining illegally across the border in Guyana who might speak to us.